Welcome back, everybody. I'm Travis with Linux Academy. In the previous lesson, we started working with the Docker file to go and build images. In this lesson, we're going to focus on learning a few additional things about building images. So far, we've been working with the Docker image build command to take a Docker file and build an image from it. When using this command, we do have some useful flags. We've already worked with the T flag, which allows us to go and name and tag our image, but there are also some additional ones you should be aware of. There is the F flag, which allows you to specify the name of a Docker file. I can start by going over to Docker Images and Weather App. In here, I'm going to go and make a copy of the Docker file. I'm going to call it dockerfile.test. So for example, let's say I have a Docker file that I specifically use for testing my image, and then I have one we go and build from. We use the F flag to specify the Docker file we want to use. In this instance, we're using the F flag and specifying dockerfile.test. Now we still need to end the command with a period. We can use the rm and force rm flags to make sure that we delete any intermediate containers that are created during the build process. We can also add additional metadata to our image by using the label flag. In this example here, I'm going to create a new label called version. And again, we do this by taking the domain name and reversing it. In this instance, we have com, and then Linux Academy, and then version. And the version is being set to 1.8. Additionally, we're also able to go and use the ulimits flag to go and set any kind of ulimit options for the container. We can also go and build images by piping a Docker file through standard in. Before I show you the example, I'm going to drop back into my home directory. Just like normal, we're going to go and execute a Docker image build. We go and tag and name our image. This time, I am going to be using the flag --rm because I want to make sure that any intermediate containers get deleted. And then here we go and specify the contents of what we're going to be piping in from standard in. So we start off with a dash, followed by two less than signs, and then EOF. This example is from when we're working with the volume instruction. We're going to go and just use the Nginx latest image as the base image. And we're going to go and add a mount point by using the volume instruction. And then we close this out by using EOF. We can also go and build an image using a remote URL. In this instance, we're going to be using Git. And it's pretty standard. You're just executing a Docker image build. You specify your tag and then your URL. If you're using master, just leave it as the URL. But we're also able to go and specify a reference by using the hash sign. The reference can be a tag or a branch. Also, if we have our Docker file in a subdirectory, we would use the URL hash and then a colon and then the name of the directory. And we can use a reference as well. So we specify the URL, hash, the reference, colon, the directory where the Docker file is at. Here I'm supplying the URL to the weather app Git repo. We do have a build reference, so we're going to use the hash sign and then the name of the branch. Before we go and build the image, I wanted to show you the GitHub repository for the weather app. Come over here and select branch and then click on remote build. In here we have a directory for the source code. This has all the files that we'll need. And then the Docker file. And this is the Docker file that will be used when we execute our build. Before I execute the build, I want to warn you up front that there is going to be an issue. And I think it has something to do with the version of Git that is installed on this version of CentOS. We get this command here. I'm not really sure why. What I can tell you is that if I do git version, I'm running 1.8. And here on my local system, if I execute git --version, I'm running 2.16. And when I execute the command here, it actually does run. And the last way of building an image is by using a tar file. The only difference, rather than going and specifying a Docker file, we can do ~sign and then provide the tar file. Now this tar file should have everything you need to go and build your image. This includes the Docker file and any kind of source code. Let's start by cding into the Docker images directory. I'm going to create a new directory called tar image. Go and cd into the new directory. We're going to go and start this process off by going and cloning the weather app repo. cd into content weather app. Execute git checkout remote build. We're using this branch because it has both the Docker file as well as the source code. Now we're ready to go and create the tar file. Execute tar -zip zcvf, name the tar file weather-app.tar.gz. We want to make sure that we include the Docker file as well as the source. Now that we have our tar file, let's go and build our image. Use the T flag to name and tag the image. We're going to call it Linux Academy Weather App, and the tag is me from tar. And the way we go and import this is by dash, $sign, and then the tar file. And that's how we build a Docker image from a tar file. That's all I have for this lesson. Go ahead and mark it complete.